maybe I could just start with an observation that, might put a question mark after it. At the opening at White Columns on Thursday, someone said to me, why organize an exhibition with Vaucher and Crass now? And my answer is pretty straightforward. Is that, it's my belief at least that Crass's ideas, your ideas, remain as relevant now as they were 45 years ago. And just wondering, perhaps both of you, about how do you negotiate that reflective aspect of representing your history in a context of the present?
You mean as far as the film is concerned?
The film, the work, the ideas?
I don't think it's representing it because it's kind of been there all the time and people have grabbed it and run with it in different directions and continue to do so. I think in a very positive way. And that's more than one can wish, really. Maybe Ken wants to...
Yeah, my immediate thought, I didn't watch it all because I can't bear watching it, was just think Gaza. Nothing's changed. That was 40 years back. I wrote that in a fit of absolute anger. We've been working for 4 or 5 years, I think, out on the road. Our promotion has always been a sort of difficult form of peace and love. We had 4 fathers and 4 mothers within that who abided here, well. And it was an extension of that. It was a new approach. We were on the attack. And actually for a while we really believed the true potential of a true revolution occurring in Britain, if not elsewhere. The Falklands War saw to that. This was a reaction to the Falklands War. But it was actually written because one of the band I found crying. And I said, what the fuck's wrong? We're on top of it, we're on top of it. And she replied that she was terrified that this was going to lead to World War. And that was a petty little war, Falklands War. And that made me so angry. We'd been this power, we'd been this force in total opposition, specifically to war, but to corporate capitalism and all the rest of the jingoistic crap. And I was outraged that one of us had broken. We were the front, we were the revolutionaries. We don't break. And I actually wrote that all in about 24 hours. I just went straight to my desk and wrote and never edited it. Said to the band, okay, we're in the studio next week. We didn't rehearse it, we didn't do anything, we just played it. And the anger comes out. It's uncompromising, it's unlistenable, it's unreadable, but that's actually how it really is. It's a mad, crazy, bananas thing that we're trying to cope with. I still believe in the front line. I still operate on the front line in a very different way, as does G. And if you go to the show at White Columns, you'll see that, that the approach is different. But the basic attitude remains the same, and that is peace and love. And it's hard to see it in a film like that, but that's what it is.
Anybody want to ask a question?
Are there any particular messages or statements you made as a band, whether through art or music, lyrics, that you regret or feel like didn't age well? Do you feel like there's any message or statement you made as Crass, whether through lyrics or art, that didn't age well or that you regret looking back on?
Regret, did you say? No. I mean, you can only do what you can at the time. On reflection, you can see, oh, I could have taken that path, or I could have added more. But at the time, we were all doing the best we could with the knowledge that we had, and the ability we had, and we've continued to build on that in different ways. As Ben said, you know, I'm still going into studio and trying to say it, you know, whatever it is that you go in the studio for. I don't know what it is, but how it comes out is, you know, I'm doing it for me. I'm trying to understand the shit that's out there within myself, so I do it for me and then I put it out to share. I'm not doing it for anyone else, you know. So, yeah.
There was a point with that was the source of There Is No Authority But Yourself, which is how that ended, is when I wrote that. And I've since referred to that as chapter 1. I still profoundly believe that there is no authority but yourself. But what I now believe is you've got to know what, who, or why that self is. The self isn't the ego, that's what I've learned. And so, you know, there is no authority or say, well, that's all right, then I can go out and, you know, 20 pints of beer and knock myself out and behave like. That's not the authority of self, that's the authority of ego. And so I've always referred to it in some of the talks I've done in places as chapter 2 is now where I'm working, and that is trying to actually come to a true self, a true inner being, where all of this becomes as nothing. And when we can find that place where all of this comes as nothing, then we can start building something. And that was, I think, the mistake of the revolutionary politics of Crass, that we didn't have time to look inward deep enough to see that the silence and the emptiness, which is eternal and immortal, was the very thing we should have been turning to.
Another question?
Sorry, quick artsy question. The editorial style and the way the films were put together.
I can't hear, I'm afraid.
That's okay. Sorry, quick artsy question. The editorial style, the way the films were put together, the specific images, is this influenced by the Situationist films, Detourment, that stuff?
No, not really. Video had just come in, and we've never had a television, but got one in so I could film off the television. So a lot of that's why I'm filming what I film off the television. So all of that has appeared, you know, in the public domain. There's nothing that nobody's ever seen, not on the British TV anyway. But that's why the quality is so crappy, you know. But it's the only way I could get the information I really wanted. To be quite honest, I had to be in the right head to be able to film that stuff, because it's heavy. It's really heavy. And if I wasn't in the right mood, I'd find it just too much. You know, I find the film too much, quite honestly. And I did go out for a little while, so I thought, this is so negative. I can't really watch it anymore. But hopefully, Ben said, no, it's not negative. It's actually what is still happening here. We know that from Gaza. It's very, very vivid what's happening there, you know. And Ukraine, you know, you name it, it's still there. People are still starving. You know, it's kind of so. I like to think that it's a positive thing about the film, especially at the end. You know, we have to run. We have to run with it and turn it into something else, because it's so. I don't know what it is, but it's, you know, sometimes you wake up and you think, why am I doing this? It's nothing's changing. You know, as you said, it's kind of still relevant. But I don't care if I'm losing. I'm still going to fight to the end, because it's really important. And the next generation, you know, I want to leave something, you know, for them to sort of grasp hold of and run again, you know, with that. That's all really.
I think that, well, just a quick thought, you know, that really all of that is gross pornography, and that is regularly shown, as G got all of that stuff off of, you know, public transmissions, and it's pure porn of the worst sort, worse than anything I can imagine possible within the sexual realm. It tops it. Yet still it's there, and still we've gone at it, and they've fed it and fed it and fed it until we become bland to it and accept it. And I think that that's the very thing. We've come to accept that. We're not outraged in the manner in which we should be.
I think it's even worse now because you can just pick up your phone and look at as much pornography as you like. In the sense you're saying, it's the war pictures, the on and on and on. And I don't have one of these magic phones. I won't have one. But I understand you can just tap in the subject and up it comes. So there's somebody at the back.
Could I just say, how dare they assume that we will feed ourselves on that crap? How dare they?
Somebody at the back there.
Can you hear me?
Can I speak up, I'm afraid.
Yeah, thanks, you guys are fucking awesome, and that was really sensing.
Can't hear a thing, I'm afraid. I'm sorry, I'm really sorry.
You want to come round to the mic?
Yeah.
Hey, thank you guys. It's really awkward now, but yeah, no. Just wanted to try to articulate an observation about, some people have already kind of echoed this, like the editing or the use of this imagery that's so ubiquitous in media, but I think like what you guys do also with the music coupling with the visual is kind of both like obliterates that gruesome pornographic content, but it to me it was very visceral today, and kind of some like glitching and speeding up the same image does something to bring it back to an actual body that's being mutilated and destroyed. I think I'll leave it at that, and then anyway, when I was first exposed to your records around 13, it changed my life forever. My question would be any New York performances or anything in the future.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I mean, the point one gets from that, I think, is decontextualizing, and that's what I think G did. She put by exactly the processes that you were mentioning, speeding up, counter-cutting, etc., etc. So, yeah.
There's somebody in the front and then there's somebody in the back.
Oh.
You have to speak up.
You can hear me like that?
Well, they can't.
Hi.
Hi.
I'm Crash. So, y'all came to New York, which I'm sure we're all very grateful for. I'm curious we're talking about the context of the current moment and your reflections on your work. You both, I think, are aware of, creating a kind of cultural language of its own through your work to a certain degree, or at least participating in that creation. And, talking about the way things feel as though they've kind of stayed the same since you created this work. I'm curious how you feel today, people who exist in a similar context to you did then, in this kind of dying empire, genocide. It's just become very normalized in the current moment. We're exposed to all these images, we are exposed to this language. What do you feel like the role of these kinds of words and images and sounds is in this moment? And do you think that perhaps there might be other things that are necessary I'm trying to find a way to articulate this. Obviously, direct action is always necessary. How do you, not to presume you have an answer, but what are your thoughts on just the role of art in this current moment where it sometimes feels as though it can become fetishized and decontextualized, as you say? I'll leave it there.
Should I go for that? Well, I mean, obviously, creativity on any level, on any subject, is what will keep us sane. And I mean creativity, just not just painting, music, and all those. I mean, the smallest things. I mean, I think people are so deprived of understanding that they have a lot of potential. A lot of it's knocked out of kids when they're younger, you know, and you have to re-find it and really develop it, you know, and enjoy it and share it. You know, it can be a brilliant cake you've made, you know, that you share with your neighbour or your lover, you know, it's kind of like, that's important, you know, and touching the earth. I mean, for me, personally, I'm a gardener, I'm a keen gardener. That's where I think, that's where when I touch the earth, I feel connected. You know, and I just find a lot of young people now disconnected from the earth. They just haven't got a clue. You know, and you know, it's not their fault. It's like introducing them back to the earth again, so you can start growing properly. You know, and it's kind of up to you to find a way to encourage that or share that or find it. You know, it's too much of this at the moment. You know, this thumb has become something else. I watch people and it's all this, you know, and I think, wow, look at how that's developing. Or not developing, because if you look at, you know, like, you look at the chimpanzees and apes, and this is the most important thing they're using all the time, and I think, well, that's weird, we're going backwards somehow, you know. But anyway, yeah, I mean, creativity is one of the most important things, yeah.
My response to that is really the Mayans used to greet each other, and probably it still happens in Mexico where people meet, and I am thou as thou art I. And that, as a principle, is deeply profound. You know, where Donald Trump and where the kid in Gaza, where this and where that and where everything, every little part of it, we are connected profoundly beyond any form of classical or academic view. We are as one, we work as one, we are utterly complicit, we are utterly this, we are utterly that, but we are utterly one. And if we think of each other truly in that way, we're not thinking, if we know it, then that's the first step to what I would call freedom, true freedom. And within that, yes, I know the process is, you know, as Jesus is saying, of creativity, imaginings, etc., all parts of that. But the pantomime has to be shifted into the deep reality. We're not actors, it isn't a game. We are a profound interrelationship. We cannot avoid it. We are everything, and we are also nothing. And my advice is start on the nothing and work up.
I just would like to add to that it's, you know, it's not an easy journey. You know, what you're asking of yourself can be very painful. Peeling away the layers, which we all need to do because of childhood. You know, some of us had a good time, some of us had a bad time, some of us haven't survived very well. But it's like, it's affecting how you can relate to others, you know, how you can relate to life. And it's a painful journey to start unraveling it. But, you know, with patience, courage, you know, I think the journey starts to get easier, you know, no matter what it is. Because you'll find others on the way that can help you through it all. And that's very important. You can't do it on your own, not totally alone. But by the starting the journey, you start to connect. As Ben says, we're all one. And it will connect, definitely. That's what I feel anyway. There was another question at the back somewhere.
Yeah. Can you hear me okay? Okay. As everybody else is probably thinking, when I when I first heard these albums, to me, and saw your art and listened to your lyrics and listened to the music, it was like a battle cry. Like I knew what I need to do in those moments. But 40 years later, well, 1941, so about 20 something years later, it feels like sort of screaming into a void a little bit. Like, what do you guys talk about how life keep up the fight and stuff? And I really try, and it's hard living in a city like New York, and then living amongst all this capitalist shit. I'm looking for peace, to feed the homeless, to stop the wars, those kinds of things. Like, how do you suggest? Because you talk about putting up the fight, so it's like, what's that look like still today? Thank you.
I think it's really, if you're going to take on the world like that, it's really difficult. We tried to do that with Crass, take on the whole world, and what we felt about it. And very strange, in '84 when we stopped, we were very confronted with other battles which were immediately on the doorstep, which were ailing parents and, just everything suddenly became very close, and we had to deal with that. So, the battle is within, you can't feed all the homeless. It's not possible, on your own. You can't stop the war on your own. You can't stop Gaza on your own. It's not possible. What you can do is make yourself a better person. That everybody, you're part of everyone. It's kind of, and your kindness is there every day. Your hand is there every day. It's kind of, for me, I can't see any other way of existing through the day if you're just not, there's something on the window which says, just give, you've got nothing to lose. And that give is up to you. It's kind of, it's up to you what you give. But it's got to be within the realms of reality, in the sense of, you might have a piece of bread, you give it to one person. That's all you can do. You can't give it to the whole of New York. It's not possible.
You mentioned the void there, and often people seem to have a fear of the void. Well, it's deep within the void that the beauty and light starts to manifest. Because the void is free of ego, free of self-interest, free of all of the things we like to think we are. I'm a this, I'm a that, I'm another, I'm another. And each time you're a this, you've just created the that who doesn't agree with this. The void is empty of everything, and so are we, except for the manifestations, the creations, the ego, the whole construct of self. Well, that's war. That is actual war. That's the meaning of war. Our total inability to live with ourselves and the depth of ourselves. That's why it happens. That's why anger and hatred develop. I am this, and then make an enemy and you've become one. And so really the void is not to be feared. The void is somewhere to dive in absolute faith. And I would guarantee if you've dived in that absolute faith, then you'll see the light within the void. Otherwise it's just a nasty dark hole and I don't want to fall down. And it's that, I've been on, I went on a herbal psychiatrist conference. I don't really know why I was asked. But each one of the practitioners said, oh, there is a stopping point. We don't go there. Because it was out of their realm. They were moving away from the construct of self, the construct of the ego. They couldn't cope with that. They need the ego to maintain their profession. It doesn't exist. It's a construct. Step back from that. Oh, I've just dropped into the void. What's going on here? I can recreate. That's the true creation, is recreation, not
Well,
painting
it's the
or...
real freedom as well.
Yes, for all people, yeah.
There's a hand up there. I think so, yes.
So I have a question for you all. The container that is Crass, you've showed us images of what like the bleak reality of humanity can be, and it can be energetically draining. And as someone that nourishes and protects their own energy, what nourishes you? Like, what fills your bucket? What are your favorite flowers, your favorite plants, your favorite animals? You kind of answered this question earlier, but Penny and I were talking about hawthorn and how it's great for the heart center. And it's one of my favorite plants, but how do you fill your bucket to then extend and give to others?
I mean, personally, as I said, I'm a keen gardener, so that's how I fill my bucket, if you like. I grow a lot of food. I share the food. I share the flowers. And that's it, really.
What's your favorite flower?
Huh?
What's your favorite flower?
Oh, I don't have a favorite, really. I love poppies. I love everything, really.
It's like saying what was your favourite moment. Well, this is my favourite moment. If it weren't, why would I be here? It's not important to me. It just happens to be where I am, so it is my favourite moment, and I'm not playing around with that. If it weren't my favourite moment, then I need to have a very long look inside. Why the fuck am I here? No, this is my favourite moment, and every flower's my favourite flower. We're walking along the boulevards, or whatever they're called here, streets, avenues, masses of flowers, really beautiful, every one of them, every little detail, wonderful, wonderful. If you have a favourite, then you don't notice the unfavourites, which is not a good idea. So it's like people. Why have favourite people?
There's a question here, I think.
Yeah. Thank you so much for being here. And I really appreciate Nadine's question. I think this moment is extremely difficult tonight, and
I don't think the others can hear you.
yeah. Okay. Thank you for being here. I think that something that we've all been kind of touching on is like the importance of being present and the importance of hope, and just in terms of how you see like ultra-leftist anarchists like moving forward. I'm not asking for an answer on how to respond to the material conditions, but how do you feel that we can maintain hope and move forward with our art as artists here, while you have also acknowledged that things, your work remains relevant as ever, and how can we continue to disrupt what has been going on and like the horror that is our reality? It's a massive question, but
I'll just jump on that one, because actually...
I don't really work with hope, so that's out the equation. I kind of work with nothing really. I don't know what I'm going to do in the studio. I don't want to know what I'm going to do in the studio, otherwise it's already done. So I get in there and I just fiddle-faddle about, and move the paints around a bit more, and drop a few things on the floor. I don't know what's going to come from that, but obviously there's something I'm trying to say, and it takes a while for me to find out what that is, and even when I've done it, I don't really understand what I've said, but it feels finished, it feels done. I can't express it anymore. And then maybe a week, 2 weeks, 2 years, I look at it and I think, I think I know what I'm trying to say there. I mean, which isn't clever ass, it is a fact. I mean, sometimes it's very clean cut. You know, something like, you know, I wanted to do a few images that nobody could translate differently, like your country needs you. It's a statement. Everybody in the world sees it in one way only. So I did a few things like that, just as an exercise, really. But other things are much more complex, you know, in some way. But hope is not in my realm.
Oh, well, my answer was very much quicker than that. And that is, it's a very simple answer. You replace hope with love.
It is, it's just love, really. It's love for the world you live in, love for yourself, love for the others, you know, people. It's just, that's what you work with. You know, your compassion, your passion, your love, everything. You know, I don't work if I'm upset. I can't work. If something happens in my life that is quite traumatic, it doesn't come into my work because I don't want to share that. You know, it's irrelevant.
I think I left out a word. Replace hope with unconditional love.
Does that answer everything?
I really believe that. It's not just coming up with another cliche, which I'm quite good at. And it really is the point. Hope is a sort of desperation. Replace it with love. There's always love. There's always love. And if you can't find it, then look harder, because it's always there. And it's the only answer, ultimately. And that means loving what you possibly at this very moment hate the most. You have to love.
You have to make friends with
forward.
it. Yeah, you have to. I mean, you really have to. I mean, I'd love to sit down with, you know, people that I think are way off the wall, you know, incredibly right or left or. I mean, I'd love to sit down with people like that because I then can get an understanding of what's happening here, you know. I mean, I have had friends that are extreme, really extreme, but it's interesting. I don't want to read about them on the paper. I don't want to hear second-hand knowledge. I want to talk to the horse's mouth. You know, why wouldn't I? You know, but people say, you're fraternizing with the enemy type thing. You know, I think, well, yeah, that's the only way I'm going to understand where it's coming from.
Yeah, because really in this context, I mean, love is the great destroyer. It's the most powerful force. We all know that from our sort of personal idea of love, you know, when we direct it to our lover, to our partner, to our parent, or expand that to its true meaning. And everything just drifts away behind it, falls to the ground. It must do.
There's a question at the back I saw somewhere.
Hi, yes. Hi. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. I was just wondering if you guys still feel connected in community today to like the other anarcho-punks of the 80s that you brought about in Crass Records, like people in the mob and Downs, or like other members of Crass. Do you still collaborate or keep in touch or feel connected? How do you feel connected today to like the anarcho-punks that you were a part of?
Well, obviously we are connected, and we have visits from all those sort of people, and we go and visit some. We have a split in the band members. We've gone off different paths, but 4 of the band we're very close to still. 2 of the band have 3 have kind of shifted away. Which, you know, that's their prerogative. And if they walked in the door, I'd still give them a cup of tea. You know, because people go off in different directions, and that has to be respected. So, yeah.
I think that, I mean, the schism could be very easily defined by those who follow the materialist path and those who follow the spiritualist path. And I don't like using that term spirit very much, but that was the truth. So that was the schism, and it's quite a big one. Because materialism is such a sort of horribly destructive force. And it allows us to imagine ourselves as existing within this imaginary pantomime which we call reality. And there's no game, no play. So I just wanted to explain what the schism was. Wasn't arguing. We didn't argue at all. We just were living in different universes.
I disagree with it a little bit, but anyway, let's change the subject. Anybody got another question?
On that note about the material and the spiritual, I wonder, because punk and political art have become so commodified at this point in the 2020s, sometimes it's hard to know what actually means anything, and I think I'm so grateful this was free and that you've done all these free events. I think you've really managed to maintain your ethic throughout art, New York City art world kind of mirage. But I'm wondering if you could give some advice about maintaining your integrity and your politics when dealing with the capitalist art world and this kind of drive to consume the sincerity.
Well, it's not too difficult, really. We've never done, what do you call it? We've never done merchandise. So something like that, you either did it yourself or you bought it off the street. It's nothing to do with us.
Oh, no, it's Amazon from China.
What we did do is put out handouts so that you could actually cut out the lettering and make your own stuff. So that's what they were. Steve is doing merchandise like there's no tomorrow. So there you go. We just let them get on with it. What was the question? I can't remember. Oh, how do we keep the integrity? Well, it's easy, really. We get approached by really, really big things. We did recently. Should I say? Should I? Some guy called Alexander McQueen. His company approached us recently they wanted to use, 40 seconds of music. And first of all, it's a lot of money too. First of all, we thought, no, fuck off, we don't do that. Then we thought, okay, we just say directly it goes to a charity of our choice. But then we give it a rethought, and then we said, no, not at all. Not at all. So you just have to think about how you can, pervert what they want to do, but then when you look deeper into the company, which is not Alexander McQueen anymore, it's something else, you say no. No, thank you. Bugger off, even with the 10 grand. It's not worth it. Really not worth it. It's just money. And it just warps everything.
My experience, I don't consider myself a writer any more than a gardener or a bread maker, but if someone says, oh, I'm a professional writer, they've just told me they're not a writer. And that goes right across the board, really. You do things because you love doing them, whatever it is, bread making or being a railway person or whatever it is, that's what you choose to do. But the moment you start choosing to do it for money, then you're out of the picture within the framework of being serious. You're not taking your life seriously.
It's like when somebody says, when did you take up the profession of doing art? I think, a profession? I don't think so. You don't take it up, you just do it, don't you? I've never stopped since I was a kid, so nothing else got in the way, so, for me.
Who, if there were some of the anarchists in history, who influenced you? I feel like I have to ask this question now.
To be honest, I've never read about anybody in the anarchist world, quite honestly. I mean, I pick up the spirit, but I've never read books on anarchists, or communism, or Marxism, or all the isms you can think of. I mean, it never has interested me. What interests me is what I get from other people speaking of it, looking at pictures, looking at what they were fighting, what they were up against. But I haven't actually read about them, to be honest. No.
I feel like I have to ask this question because your music actually introduced me to anarchism in high school. And from there, your music actually introduced me to anarchism in high school. And so I never, I had always wondered for decades, like whether there had been historical anarchists that you guys brought, putting you arrived at that place.
Well, I don't think we arrived anywhere, and I don't mean that glibly. I mean, I don't regard myself as an anarchist, and I never have done. My inspiration, early childhood inspiration, was Walt Whitman, who had probably one of the keenest views of democracy, the only view of democracy that makes any sense whatsoever. And he should be the great prayer master of the United States. Look back to Walt, what a wonderful man. So, yeah, I mean, just recently I've realized, because I was doing an interview a few weeks back, and the guy said, well, you're an anarchist, and what sort of anarchism are you into? And I thought, for fuck's sake, what? And I said, well, I'm not an anarchist, I'm a whateverist. Because whatever. And so I've now formed, and anyone who wants to join, you can do it just by deciding you've joined it. Join the whateverist movement. Whatever. It's a nice place to be.
Yeah, it's a very difficult when people put you into an ist. I always get called a feminist, which I'm not really a feminist. I am a feminist, but I'm not a feminist, if you know what I mean. I'm just, I love people, and I fight for the rights of people, whether male, female, or any other, because I can't keep up with all the different types anymore. But it's like people have a right to be what and who they are, and I will fight for the rights of that, all the time.
You must be a peopleist.
Well, you had a question, let this person, and then you can come.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Is that good? Okay. I just wanted to know how you felt different in any way.
Well, the video was because it was cheap. Because before that, with cellulose, that's all you could get. Super 8 mil. So that was it. Expensive. We didn't have any money. So somebody gave us an old camera, video camera, and obviously dead cheap. You can go over it. That's the main reason. Yeah.
Cool. Thank you.
Is that okay?
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
Curious about if you have memories from your youth that you feel influenced your work. I know this can be a personal question. I'm interested because I feel like even in our, what you could call subculture we participate in is broadly some kind of community. It doesn't always feel as though it's intergenerational contact. Quite as frequently as last time, which there were two different communities. And something I really appreciate about getting to talk to
how did I get into my work and politics, you mean?
The ethos of it all.
If I go back to, well, the area that I came from and grew up in was quite a poor area of London. And as a child, I started to notice discrepancies, especially when I started art school. And I met somebody like Penn, who was a different class. It was a very class society, Britain. So I think some of my early work was just images off the street, drawings of people on the streets. Just started to realize the differences that were going on. Not that I fully understood, because I wasn't very politically aware, I wasn't well read, and I was quite shy about talking in front of people, couldn't keep up. I went to a crap school that didn't really teach you much, but let you be free. So I think, yeah, I mean, there were occasions where suddenly, especially one occasion which turned me politically, I suppose, was a big disaster in Britain called the Aberfan disaster. It was a mining town in Wales that had a huge slag heap, several slag heaps behind the village, and the company had been warned that it could slip, and it did. It slipped. It slipped right over the school, 120 odd children, and all the teachers died. The slag just came down about 120 miles an hour. They didn't have a chance. Last day of school for summer, and that was a major, major disaster. And it was all because of corruption of the people at the top. They've been told, they've been warned, you know. And the problem with the disaster still goes on, because none of those people have ever been given compensation. All the money that was sent from all over the world to help the village, the government used for something else. Absolutely, you couldn't do that now, miss. It was really corrupt. So yeah, that was my political awakening, if you like, and it started from there. My approach to images and stuff. So.
In my case, I was traumatized when I was probably about 5, when I found a book in my parents' library, in a very big library. And it was a black book with a star on the spine. I opened it up and was introduced to bits of Auschwitz. My father had only just come back from war, so I then knew what he'd been up to. He didn't speak about it, and for a while, I thought, well, that's what he's been doing, is it? And then he started insisting that I get, look at the real world. You've got to look at the real world. I had looked at the real world in that book, and I wasn't going to have anything to do with it. So from the age of 5, I was not going to have anything to do with it, and I persisted, and I got thrown out of 2 schools because of that, etc., 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 because I was not going to, and I'm still not going to. If that's the world that he calls real, then he can keep it. I'll find another one, and effectively that's precisely what I've done for my entire life.
I read or heard this anecdote about one of your shows, and I wanted to know if it's true. That one of the gigs was infiltrated by Nazi skinheads.
Yeah.
All right, I can lean in. I don't know if this anecdote is true, and I always wondered about one of your shows that had been infiltrated by Nazi skinheads who were Sieg-heiling, and then you turned the language of hate, and one of you or the whole band started to Sieg-heil back, saying peace, 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 and absorbing the group of skinheads and escorting them out peacefully. Is that true?
Absolutely true.
I like
The only...
I like
I just want it's absolutely true. There was an untruth there, which was largely created by the left, that they were Nazis. I mean, they're disenfranchised kids who are fucked off with life, and very understandably. Most punk groups rejected them, pushed them out. We never did. We never ever created any rules about who came to our gigs. So they had access. If they wanted to do that, they could do that. They'd find out what it was about. But so it's absolute bollocks, that Nazism, disenfranchised youth. It's like sort of blaming poor black kids, that it's something to do with blackness. It's not. It's about being a human being who's being so removed, so ignored, so pushed away from anything that leads to that sort of behaviour. And it's totally understandable.
The thing about skinheads is that, you know, most skinheads were just, they liked the clothes more than they liked the punk clothes. They weren't, you know, they weren't Nazis. Very, very rare. They'd have a peace symbol next to a Nazi sign. Because people didn't really quite understand it. You're talking about young kids who were born a long time after the war. So there was this crazy sort of strange collection of stuff opposite. But they always came into our gigs because most gigs in London banned the skinheads because they were trouble. We always let them in. And they always did the C-car if they could find a break. But because we played for an hour without a break, they couldn't get the C-car very often. So, but they'd try, you know, they'd try to get it in. And something broke down and they started. It meant nothing, you know. They're all at the front of the stage as usual, and they always had a dance. They had a dance that they'd just twirl with their arms out. So if you were in the way, you'd just get knocked out, you see. They always did that. It's fine, you know. So they started the C-car, and they're all at the front. All at the front. There's about 30 of them, you know. And there's about 200 punks behind them. They're C-carling, and of course Steve starts to go peace, peace, and gradually all the punks start doing it, peace, peace, and then the skinheads are turning round, but peace, peace. It was so good. I mean, they were going to sing out, suddenly they're all going peace, peace. Like, it was just really funny. But there was lots of occasions like that. Lots of occasions where they were doing the dancing and really people were getting hurt. So the people in the audience just formed a circle. They started to close it in. The first group of people got hit, of course. They closed the circle more and more. And then they grabbed a skinhead and gave him a hug. It was great. It was so good. It was so good. The skinhead came all like this. But that's another way of, you know, trying to deal with. They're just, as Ben said, they're just, you know, kids off the street. You know, and they expect you to punch them in the face. Well, you're not going to get a punch in the face, mate. You're going to get a hug.
We have 4 minutes before 9 o'clock, so we've got time for one final question. Can we ask, of course?
Thank you. So, bringing up Steve, he was recently asked what the highlight of his musical career was. The highlight of his musical career. And he was quick to answer that it was when it was he and Penn. And it was just vocals and rhythm. And then he followed that up by saying that he was planning on retiring, touring with the Crass songs pretty soon. And he was vocal about having himself replaced so that the music could still be played and performed. And I was just sort of wondering if you have any thoughts on that. And then also, I just wanted to remark, I mean, that film was emotionally jarring. I feel a little shaken by it. But I also don't want to get lost in this, that part of the music that you both created, I've always sort of appreciated the wry sense of humor that Crass has brought to a lot of it, with like Architect's Bride and then Our Wedding. So I just wanted to also follow up with like, do you think that Crass has a sense of humor?
Well, we only did it for a laugh. I mean, that's where Steve and myself started it. We had no intention of making a band. We were just fucking about. We were both very pissed off. He was a very pissed off, very young man, and I was a very pissed off, middle-aged man. That's the only difference. That was a laugh in itself. Yeah, we did it for a laugh.
Maybe that's the perfect place to leave this. So.
Might be. Any more questions? Good.
Thank you very much, everybody, for joining us.
I'll say it again.